Welcome to Megapath Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today let's talk about The Walking Dead Season 7, Episode 10. This is going to be an open discussion. There's a lot I want to talk about, and I'm doing this a little bit different than some of the other reviews. I like to do it different depending on what type of episode we get. If there's a lot of symbolism, a lot of hidden meanings, and deeper stuff, I like to do some videos where we do more edits, maybe even show some footage. But this one I want to do an open discussion because the fan base from the comments I read, it's all over the place. There's some fans that are disappointed with the Junkyard Gang, and I will skip over some parts about the Junkyard Gang because I did a complete video just yesterday covering everything we know. It's kind of like an explained video, everything we know so far, and a little bit of a prediction about how that's going to tie up to the main plot in the next coming few episodes, probably towards the end of the season. But the fan base is spread all over the place as far as thinking The Walking Dead jumped the shark. Some of them think they jumped the shark a long time ago. There's fans that absolutely love the direction the new season is going. So first thing first, let's jump right into the actual episode, the Saviors versus the Kingdom. Now this I liked. I like this scene because of the subtlety in it. You have Gavin, who seems to be the leader of this crew that's meeting with the Kingdom people. Jared is the dickhead who keeps being an asshole to Richard, and you just know that's going to explode. There's no way that is going to... there's no way that situation's going to resolve itself unless Richard stops talking back. I mean, becomes a mute, and he gives in 100%. And I think this is a very clear show as to what Gavin wants, because Gavin understands. He's like, listen, I know this isn't Richard's fault. He tells Ezekiel, he's like, no, you're not going to not bring Richard. You're going to bring him, but this better not continue and become a problem, or else this is going to have to get visceral. And I believe what he's telling him is, no matter what we do, no matter how we act, no matter even if we are in the wrong, you know what I mean? We are superior than you. We run this shit. We own this shit. You don't talk back. You don't look at us with a mean mug. Because he does talk down to Jared as being an idiot. He tells him to read a room when Jared asks permission. And that's another thing. We know that Jared looks up to this guy as the one who calls the shots because he asks for permission to tune up Morgan. I think that's how he puts it. But he wants to beat Morgan's ass because Morgan asks for the stick back. So there's some subtleties in there, but not only does Jared ask permission, but Jared also doesn't ask permission to be a complete ass. Like, he does his own thing without fear of getting yelled at or reamed out or losing his position with the Saviors. There's no fear of that, but he asks for permission to escalate this a little further instead of just going his own way. So you see how there's these very thin, frail structure of how the Saviors function, and I can almost imagine that Gavin is making damn sure that when he goes back to the complex, Negan doesn't find out that Gavin's being weak, that Gavin's siding with the survivors, because if Negan hears anything like that, maybe Gavin is the one who's going to get his ass on the wall, on the chopping block. Maybe he's going to get knocked down to being a grunt instead of a leader. And you can pick all this out in the subtleties in a scene that previously, or maybe in first viewing, could have seemed like a contradictory scene because of the guys being called an idiot. And Gavin is calling him an idiot. Gavin is the one who is running the shots, yet he's not putting Jared in his place. He's not saying, Jared, knock it off. You know why? Because the people in the kingdom, the communities that are working for the Saviors are the inferior ones. They are the peasants. The Saviors are the kings. They run shit. I think Negan even said, we are the kings, da-da-da, when he tried to pitch that shit to Daryl, live like a king. So Gavin can't tell him, Gavin can't reprimand Jared, you know what I mean? And not, especially not in front of the Saviors. So I think that's why the complexity in that scene was something that I liked a lot. I think that scene alone, even though it's little and it might be so subtle that you watch the scene and you don't even really think about it, but that's why that scene I could watch 4 or 5 times, and I think it is friggin' awesome. The little things too, like Jared, the one that asks for Richard's gun. I don't know, chances are they did do this on purpose. I don't know if it's on purpose, but I find it a weird coincidence that Negan grandstands and takes all of the guns off the people from Alexandria because of a screw-up. Carl shoots the gun. Carl acts out with the gun. And these people, this new working relationship, it's a volatile situation. Somebody can blow up and explode and take a shot at Negan, take their anger or frustrations out with a weapon. It's a dangerous situation. So what does Jared do? He mimics what his boss did. You know what I mean? Maybe he looks up to his boss. He looks up to Negan as being the man. So he mimics him and he says, you know what? No more guns for the bad boys, whoop-de-whoop. And he doesn't do it in a big way where he rolls in and he knows it's right and he takes all their guns away and he causes this big whole ruckus for Gavin to have to deal with. No, he goes right for the weak spot, maybe showing some of his own personal weakness, and he takes Richard's gun because they had the problem they initiated in the beginning. So that savior scene in a nutshell, I really like that. So we get a little bit more too. We see Ben coming up, getting a little bit more confident, but he's also reacting without thinking. He should have stayed out of the situation and let Ezekiel handle that. We see Morgan, who is gonna protect his people, but at the same strength, he's also keeping the peace. He was going to accept whatever punishment was dealt his way. I'm kind of curious to see what he would do if the punishment was, death, if his life was on the line. I mean, you're going to that's self-preservation. So Morgan's an interesting character that I'm really enjoying how big of a role he's getting compared to the comic. Comic Morgan, I think, is not developed as well as TV Morgan, and I'm loving that because we got a fantastic actor. But there's other little subtleties, like the girl talking about the dress. I like that stuff. It's not the end. The first part I liked. The last part I didn't. It felt like she was so disconnected from reality, from the world they're living in. But maybe that's the point. But the beginning where she says, my sister has a dress like that, and the one character said, don't even think about it. I like little lines like that. I really like that. Because this is such a messed up reality that even a year, 2 years into it, sometimes it's going to be hard to deal with, Even though it's been a year or 2 years, it's still going to mess you up mentally. Now, moving on to Daryl and Richard, this seemed like a little filler moment here, and I really felt like they went a different direction. I liked it, and I really liked Daryl's speech, where Daryl says, even if she gets a fever, I'll kill you. I loved all of that.
She dies. She catches a fever. Anything happens to her, I'll kill you.
However, I just feel like this is a really stupid plan for Richard. This could backfire in so many different ways. I think it is idiotic. You could call it desperate, sure, whatever. But it's so dumb to think that they can, take out a caravan of saviors and then set a trail that leads back to the cabin, the cache, the weapons cache. So he's giving up all that weapons that he put in the trailer. Maybe there's not a lot there, but he's giving that up. They should be hoarding as much as they can, not giving it up. So he's going to give up his weapons and his stash. Then he's going to leave a trail to Carol. What if they got there and they didn't just run in there and kill Carol? What if they got there and tortured her and she truly didn't know nothing, and then they realized, something else is fishy here? What if they just thought there's no way this one woman did it? We got this wrong, even though we followed the trail. This isn't the person. This is just such a stupid plan to frame Carol as being the one that destroyed this group. If you were even halfway intelligent, you can tell by all the shell casings. You could probably tell by how many people were in the crew, what kind of ambush it was. There has to be at least 2 people. I mean, at least 2 people. So Richard's plan was absolutely moronic. I don't put that on the writers fully, though, because you can have characters that do dumb things. The only problem is when you take a step back, you have to say, okay, here's a character who does something dumb, but why was this in the story? Could we have gotten something that was a little bit better, thought out a little deeper? And when it comes to developing episodes where we focus solely on certain sections of the different communities, like we didn't peek in on the hilltop or whatever, would it have been better to get a little taste of the hilltop and see what they're doing instead of carrying on this bullshit mission with Richard? It didn't really develop anybody. It showed us that Richard is desperate. We don't need that. We already know he is. We already know he wants to attack the saviors no matter what. We already know he's going to die for the kingdom. That didn't tell us anything new. And then Daryl is very overprotective for Carol. Gabriel. We know that. That's not new. I don't know. That entire scene, well acted. Loved the fight. I love the altercation. I still enjoy watching it. But overall, I didn't really feel like it gave us anything. Hence, if you say filler, yeah, sure. It leads into a nice little conversation with Daryl and Carol later on. But one of the big moments is the junkyard. And again, if you want to get my complete thoughts on the junkyard, everything we know so far, I have that video up. But one thing I want to ask is, how did Gabriel know that Rick smiled? Because Rick smiled back where they surrounded him by the boat. And then they took him over, I guess, next door to the boat or near the boat. That's another thing. Why were all the people in that one area? Kind of makes that surrounding ambush a little bit ridiculous, because were they all waiting? That seemed a little convenient. So maybe that is their one entrance, where you have a lot of the group waiting around, maybe even posted up, guarding the place. Since that isn't in the junkyard area, what were they doing there? However, maybe you guys can let me know. I missed it. Maybe Gabriel was talking about Rick smiling in the junkyard when Gabriel was present, because he did do that once or twice. Nowhere near as big as when he got surrounded in the end of the previous episode. But one of the biggest problems that a lot of fans have, the fans that talk negative about the Junkyard group, is the fact that they talk like they're stupid. You know what I mean? Here comes the split. I'll talk about the positives and the negatives, because at the end of the day, I really liked the performance. The actress killed it. I think she had something magnetic about her performance where I just really enjoyed watching it, and I was interested on the edge of my seat to see what's going to happen next. Not like a big mystery or a big twist is going to happen, but this group and this actress made me very curious to see how they act, how they treated each other, what their next steps were going to be, because keep in mind, the group seemed like they were going to kill the survivors after the deal was like, no, there's no deal. We're not, joining you, whoop-de-whoop. She did her whole fist, and the group with menacing faces started walking towards our survivors, but they didn't have weapons out. They didn't go stabbing. So what were they going to do? Were they going to drag them out of the junkyard and just throw them out and forget about them? Then you risk them coming back for Gabriel. So basically they were going to kill them or take them prisoner. You know what I'm saying? But as far as the negativity towards the Junkyard group, again, it stems from them not being grounded in reality so much. And here's where we're going to go with one positive is, sure, you might have people that are a little silly, a little loopy, a little weird, a little odd. You have people in real life that are odd as shit. So you can just take those type of people and say, like, okay, this is the Junkyard group. They were odd as shit before. It wasn't like they were Rick Grimes and Lori Grimes and, Maggie Green, Herschel. They weren't normal people, and I think that's the thing that messes up a lot of people. They weren't these normal individuals who became these weirdos. They might have been weird from the start. And another thing about the up, and I make fun of that too. I make fun of that my damn self. I wish they would have just called it the Up Top or something. Take Rick up top. It sounds so much better than the up. But hold on. What if these are some weird people in the original world, the real world before this? What if they were a little odd, a little weird? But what if their show was not them talking silly? What if they made a nickname for the top of that mountain of trash? They could have talked regular, you know what I mean? They could have talked normal. They could have been a little silly when they first took refuge in that junk pile. And someone could have, and I know this is a stretch, but hear me out. Someone could have walked on top of the very, where Rick and the girl went, to be a lookout or to look in each direction to say, okay, let's first search in this direction, then we'll go clockwise and we'll search all around. Maybe we'll make markers, whoop-de-whoop. So then as they were going up top, the leaders, to map out where they were going to the next day to search, some of them say, oh, I'm tired of this. It's, my legs are tired, something. We just keep going up, and up. You know what I mean? So slowly that turns into something between friends, between a group, where it's like, oh, we go to the up. You know what I mean? Because she had that little bit of a smile. So you could take something that is grounded in reality. A lot of friends, a lot of cliques and groups, they will make, I don't want to say like nicknames or code names, but they will. You'll have nicknames for friends. You'll have code names for things. You'll have things you say that only people in your, inner circle or people involved in that situation will know. It can be going on a road trip and messing something up where you could say one word or a combination of words that to any normal individual makes you look like strange or weird, and that doesn't make sense. But to you and your friends who went through that situation, you could say a group of words, like flat tire candy bar, and you're like, oh my god, yeah, I remember that insane situation on the road trip. Someone else, like another normal person, thinks you're freaking retarded. You know what I'm saying? So this group could have that backstory that's grounded in reality. They could have got so sick and tired and exhausted in the very beginning where they just stopped having normal conversations and they said, you know what, let's knock this wasted dialogue and small talk. Let's get rid of it. Let's just talk direct. I'm not saying they held like a meeting and said, okay, no more talking direct, but this could be something that involved where it was some of the leaders, you know what I mean? Like not just the people leading the group, but some of the more popular, some of the more mentor type characters were like, I'm done with small talk, I'm done with this bullshit, and they influenced others to follow after them. You have some younger people. 2 years ago, they were even younger yet when the apocalypse first hit. So there's definitely some realistic stuff that you can start trimming away and creating a backstory for them so they don't seem as weird and jumping the shark as just seeing them now. How they act now is strange, but we need to see where it goes. We need to see if we get introduced to some more backstory with these characters, and maybe that will make us look at them a little different and not just shit on them immediately and say, hey, it's weird, it's odd, this isn't grounded in reality, I don't like that shit anymore. But if I could say two things that I just really disliked about the Junkyard Gang is the idea that they are going to be useful for war. Keep in mind, this group is a group that did not want to risk getting the supplies off the boat. They were sitting around waiting. They said they opened up cans of food that were all rotted, yet they're sitting there waiting by a boat that has potential food and supplies, and we saw it did. It had weapons, a ton of weapons and food and supplies and stuff. They just sat there and waited because their motto is to take, do not bother. That's it. Meaning, if it's easy, if it's in the open, if we could take it and there's very little risk, very little chance of us getting hurt, injured, or killed, then we do it. If not, if it's risky, if there's a chance we can get hurt, injured, or killed, we don't do it. Take, do not bother. You are gathering these people for a war. A war. There's going to be a lot of bothering in a war. You know what I mean? It's not just as easy as taking. Now, with that said, to defend this, to defend Rick's stance as well, yeah, we know we got to get the kingdom. Maybe Rick is still thinking of getting the kingdom people. But having a group like the group at the junkyard, having them as able bodies to assist in the war is definitely a plus, no matter how you look at it. If they still want to take and don't bother, don't put them on the front lines. Don't put them anywhere where it's way too risky. There's way too much chances of them screwing it up. Because again, they make a huge point out of take, do not bother. This is what essentially led to the group. Because they don't bother. They watch the boat the whole time. That led to the introduction of the Junkyard Gang. So you can't put them realistically in the show as a writer and have them fighting on the front lines. But they're very useful if they were setting up traps, being scouts, if they were hauling ammo, or if they were doing stuff like that that is not in the front line fighting. You know what I mean? So these people, even though they take and don't bother, you can still put them to really good use. So again, if you're someone out there and you're like, well, I don't like it because it's just stupid to take characters who don't want to risk anything, don't want to put a lot of effort in, but you're essentially recruiting them to go to war. That doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't at all. As a matter of fact, that's just asinine. But if you look at it and say, okay, you can use them for a lot without having to put them on the front lines, then it starts to make a lot more sense. You can use them as snipers. Even if you take a bunch of them, put them at a distance, and say, okay, we're going into this outpost. You see any saviors come and just light them up. And it doesn't matter if they're not, marksmen. It doesn't matter if they are not, deadly like Andrea, or I shouldn't say Andrea, but Sasha. It doesn't matter if they're like that or not. If you get them just halfway decent, you could take out a bunch of saviors, and as snipers from a distance, they're still safe. And there's one last negative about the Junkyard Gang, and that is not about the gang themselves, but when Rick was fighting Winslow, they censored out the gore, or they didn't show the gore. That's just not like The Walking Dead. And I know we're going to get a few people to say, oh, what does it matter? It's blood and guts, whatever, da-da-da. You don't really need to see that up close for that scene to be any good. And I strongly disagree. If this was any other zombie kill, I probably wouldn't be talking about it. It wouldn't even be a discussion. But the whole point of this walker was, how creative is Rick going to have to be surrounded around soft goods, mattresses and pillows and clothes and garbage bags. There's no weapons there. How creative is Rick going to have to be to kill this walker that has metal around his eyes and head? He has spikes coming out. He's got spikes all through his body. He ends up knocking him down with the pillows and junk and the mattresses and stuff. And then he picks up a broken piece of glass, I'm assuming it looks like, and then they don't show you. Again, this walker has spikes everywhere, has the face mask on. How did he do it? This was the one walker kill you should not censor. It makes no sense. It's clunky as hell. Again, this is a walker that you have to be creative to kill, and this is the one they choose to censor out. We are now in the 7th season. It's a little late now to make a family-friendly show. In my opinion, that can't stand, because we got a lot of comments I read who love the gay characters, you know what I mean? I've also seen comments that said, you know what, I'm out of here because of the gay characters. So are you going to kill Aaron and Eric and Tara because you're getting complaints? At what point do you stop? You know what I'm saying? Is Rick and Michonne a couple because they were getting complaints about racism? At what point do we start saying, oh, it's the fans that are really controlling shit and not the producers and the writer and the creator? It's very disappointing where you're watching a show that you love and you realize that if you get a microphone and scream loud enough, The Walking Dead will change shit for you. That is disappointing as hell. If we find out that they truly did censor that zombie kill, I shit you not, I'm ashamed to call myself a huge fan of this show. Where's your balls? 2017? Where's your balls? This is the world we live in now? Some people go, oh, that's too much, and you give in? Don't give in to terrorists. What's wrong with you? Maybe I have the mentality of a 80s action hero or something. I don't know. But we don't negotiate with terrorists, so I won't listen to complainers that there's too much gore. That's ridiculous. It should be more gore. It's pretty sad when I sit back and start watching some of the movies from the 80s and 90s, the creature movies, and there is just repulsive special effects in a good way. And then I look at today, and we're supposed to have, shocking, head-turning scenes with The Walking Dead. I mean, The Walking Dead, you know what I mean? No, because it lost its balls, apparently. All right, anyway, with that said, we got some Carol and Daryl stuff. I think there is an excellence to their dynamic. The characters and the way they portray the characters, there's something truly fantastic there. I could sit there and watch those characters all night in the cabin just discussing shit, and I love the decision that Daryl makes. Now, Daryl's getting a little bit on my nerves with the whole dialogue, the way he speaks. And it's not all the time. There's good moments. There's really good moments. When he's talking with Carol, it's great. It feels, smooth and natural and fluid. But when he was talking with Morgan, even when he brought up Carol, I knew that was an amateur way to set that dialogue up and make it, attach it to the plot. That's such a ridiculous thing for Daryl to say. Say, oh, where's your balls? If Carol was here, she would take them. No, you're saying that. The character is saying that because the writer needs to incorporate it into the story. I didn't think that was fluid, you know what I mean? Here's the thing. It's not that it's bad dialogue. It's not that I hate the dialogue. You could call it bad dialogue. I don't hate the dialogue. I feel like there's definitely stronger and better dialogue they could have used that is more authentic to the character, and they just shout out something different. You know what I mean? It's not bad. It's not. The performance wasn't bad. I love his Norman Reedus killed it in the last episode. The last episode with his emotions and his range, this is the best acting he's probably ever done is on The Walking Dead. In my opinion, he brings his A game. That, just his appearance back in like episode 4, that shit was rough. Just seeing him standing there, he's killing it. I just wish that when they sit down to pen his lines, they would give him some remarkable shit to say. And again, it doesn't have to be like, well educated, because again, he's that, redneck or whatever. But you could definitely have better dialogue and better interactions with him and the characters. Give them a complete conversation, something. And again, it's not, I hate this, I love this, this is bad, I condemn this. We were talking in the moment. There's some things that I have thought were poor choices in the show in certain episodes, but later when I go back and rewatch it, I don't skim through it. I don't hate it. I don't say, oh, this is terrible, I'm never watching this again. No, I watch it. Some of it I do enjoy. It's just when we talk about the good and the bad, we're sharing our opinions. And there are some moments and some scenes that still to this day, I believe 100% they could have done better. But that doesn't mean I never watch it. That doesn't mean I hate it. That doesn't mean I print screenshots and throw darts at it or something. That's just ridiculous. Some of the comments I see, it is if you say, oh, I don't know about this, I don't like this, and da-da-da-da, it's as if you're saying the entire series is a sham and we should just, petition to get it canceled or something silly. No, this is an open conversation. This is kind of the point. We are not here to drool over this. There's enough out there for people who only want positive stuff for The Walking Dead. We're not going to do that all the time. That's just not realistic. Everyone in a more professional capacity, all they do is sugarcoat everything because they don't want to lose, the exclusive interviews, exclusive whatever. But here we have a authentic look at the fan base, and I think that in the future, you just wait and see. That is going to be an extremely useful tool for filmmakers coming up in a few years. They just need to catch up with what's going on. Anyway, thoughts and opinions in that comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn.
Subscribe now.